Well, good morning. You guys good? Yeah? Getting a little workout in here before we get started. I just want to say welcome. If you've never been here to fellowship, we don't always preach from treadmills, but today we are. And if you're joining us online, we are thrilled that you're here today. I am excited to preach, because this series is actually all about helping you stop chasing after things that will never actually satisfy. There's things in your life that honestly, you probably don't even know that you're chasing, but you are. And so, this series, faster. How about, you want 10? This series is really an invitation to jump off the carrot-colored treadmill and start chasing after things that really matter. I don't care who you are. If you're a human, which by the way, last time I checked, we all qualify. If you're a human, you have been lied to. Our culture continually feeds us with this lie: that you need what you don't have to be satisfied and fulfilled in life. I don't care who you are. I don't care your background. Our culture continually feeds us with that lie. You need what you don't have to be satisfied. And it's that lie that keeps you on this treadmill, continually chasing after more, fill in the blank. If only I could get that car or that promotion or that level of income or that type of square footage. Once I have a spouse, then I will be satisfied. Once I have that lake house or the latest iPhone, the one with the 3 cameras. Once I have that one, then I will be happy. And then what happens? You get those things. You get those things, and then what happens? That's not enough, is it? You're chasing after then the next level. The next level, the latest and greatest of whatever that thing might be. At one point or another, you and I have all been caught on the treadmill, chasing after money and stuff. And today I want to share with you a few principles that I first heard back in 2010. And they're principles that really changed my life. Have you ever had one of those messages that you've heard and it just kind of sticks with you into the future? There's a few principles that I heard back in 2010 that have just stuck with me. I remember the pastor, I remember the graphics, I remember the room that I was in, I remember everything about it. And so today I want to share a few of those things, and I've heard some of these concepts repeated over the last few years. And really the burden for me today is that I truly believe that an improper view of money and stuff can keep you from collaborating with your Creator. I truly believe that. In the bottom of my heart, in the depths of my heart, I truly believe that an improper view of money and stuff can keep you from collaborating with your Creator. This morning I woke up just thinking about the boy in the New Testament with the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and his willingness to give up what he had in his hand to see an amazing thing happen. 5,000 people get fed with 5 loaves and 2 fish. I woke up thinking about this boy this morning. See, God would have found a way. Jesus would have found a way to feed a group of people. But you know who would have missed out? The boy. If he wasn't willing to share what he had, if he wasn't willing to share what had been put into his hand, who would have missed out? It would have been the boy. He would have missed the joy and the thrill of being used by God. He would have missed the joy and privilege of having a front row seat to see God do the miraculous. And I assure you that when a moment like that happens, it is etched in your mind forever. Do you think that was the last time that boy was willing to share whatever God put into his hand? Do you think so? No chance. Because the moment that you start to see God move in that way, when you go, I'll let go of my money and my stuff, I'll let go of whatever you put in my hand, and you see God use it and multiply it, you're like, I'm all in. I'm with that. I want to see you do that again, God. So let's start with the words of Jesus. Luke chapter 12, if you have your Bibles this morning. No better place to start to get a proper view on money and stuff than with Jesus himself. Luke chapter 12. Starting in verse 15, Jesus is speaking to a multitude of people at this point. His ministry is kind of catching traction to the point where crowds are coming around to hear him teach. And one guy asks him a question, and Jesus responds with a statement. Then he, Jesus, said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." I love the beginning part. It's like a caution. Watch out. And he doesn't just leave it at watch out. Watch out, be on your guard. Right? So it's one thing to look. It's another thing to be ready. Recently, my daughter started playing this game. I don't know how she came up with this game. It's not called hide and seek. It's called hide and scare. And she started playing it like a month ago, and she really wasn't good at it in the beginning. You know, she would say, "Hey, Dad, can you come up and tuck me in and say prayers and do all the things we do at bedtime?" And I would say, "Yeah, I'll be up in a couple minutes." I'd come up, and she'd be underneath her covers, and there's like a big lump in the bed, you know, and you're like, "I wonder where Phoenix is." Ah. And I'd pull it open, and she'd go, pretend like she's a cat, because she has 3 cats that she's in love with, and so she thinks that she is one. And she wasn't really good at hide and scare in the beginning, you know, and I would kind of play along. But 2 weeks ago, I was coming home from work, and she saw my car pull in the back driveway. And out the window, she's like, okay, he's parking his car, he's going to come into the house. And so, unbeknownst to me, I kind of grab my stuff, I'm on the phone, I hang up the phone right before I get into the garage, and kind of hang up my backpack and my keys, and I walk right into the living room, and right around the corner is a little scary monster that I was not expecting. And she scared me half to death, no joke. I mean, she was behind the corner like, "Rah!" And But since that time, she hasn't got me again. Because now, every time I walk into a room, I'm going, maybe there's something around this corner. Okay, maybe there's something around this corner, right? I'm now on guard, so I walk into a room slowly because I got my guard up. I know what she's doing. And I think that's actually what Jesus is telling us to do when it comes to greed and money and stuff and possessions. He's saying, you better watch out. Like, you better be on your guard. Like, when you walk into decisions, when you walk into rooms, when you walk into business meetings, when you walk into all these different places, you better be careful. You better be on your guard because greed is coming for you. You might not even be going after it, but it's coming for you. It's like it's hiding, creeping, waiting to grab a hold of your heart and your life and pull you. See, you might not even think that you're chasing after money and stuff and possessions. You might not even know, you might not even be aware that greed has got a hold of your heart, but I'm telling you, it's coming for you. And I don't think we always think about it like that. But that's what Jesus is saying. Watch out. Be on your guard. Because greed is coming for you, and I want you to know that life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. What I found in my own life is that if you've lived in your house for a couple years, you're really good at accumulating stuff. You guys ever notice that? Like, you go and a few years later, you're like, how did I get all this stuff? Naturally, it just starts to happen to us if we're not on our guard. And we know this truth. All of us know it in our head. Life does not consist in the abundance of possessions. Thanks, Pastor. So glad that I came today. Great, brilliant verse. We all know this. But our lifestyles don't actually reflect that this text is true in our lives. Most of our times, most of our lives actually reflect, if you really look at your life and the stuff and the things that you have, they actually more reflect the life of a character in the Bible. A guy that the Bible calls the rich young fool. And if you move on from Luke chapter 12, verse 15 to Luke chapter 12, verse 16, you read the parable of the rich young fool. I want to read it together. And Jesus told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I will do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for," what's that word? Yourself. This is the word that's really important today. This is how it will be for whoever stores up things for, you get this word? Themselves, but is not rich toward God. So let me ask you this morning, are you rich towards God? Are you rich towards God? See, the parable begins with a rich man. And just a little survey in the room. How many of you want to be rich? Yeah? It's not a trick question. If you want to be rich, you can put your hand up. I know we're talking about money and stuff. If you want, yeah. See, a lot of us would say, hey, we want to be rich. How many of you would say that you know someone who's rich? See, that's more of us are willing to admit that, right? How many of us in the room, I'm guessing this is going to be a lesser percentage, would say, you know what? I am filthy rich. I got it going on, right? There's probably less of us in the room that would raise our hand to that. But the truth is, 99% of us will never feel like we're rich because rich is a moving target. And it was 10 years ago that I heard this principle for the first time. That rich is actually a moving target. Like the line is always moving. You think once I get there, then I'll be rich. And then once you get there, guess what happens? The line moves. Oh, once I get there, then I'll be rich. And the line moves. It was Gallup who did a poll, and they surveyed a group of people on this topic, and they surveyed people who made $30,000, and they said, well, how much money would you need to make to feel rich? You know what they said? $74,000. If I made $74,000 a year, I would feel rich. They surveyed another group of people who made $50,000. They said, if you made $50,000 a year, how much money would you need to make you feel rich? And they said, well, $100,000 a year. I would be rich. Then the poll actually went a little bit further, and they started talking to top income earners. And as they started talking to these guys and ladies, they said once they had acquired $5 million in assets, then someone would consider themselves to be rich. So if they had acquired $4 million in assets, people wouldn't consider themselves to be rich. If they acquired $3 million, $2 million, they wouldn't consider themselves to be rich. It was only once people had acquired $5 million of assets that they would actually determine themselves and say, yep, I think I'm rich. See, 99% of us are never going to get to the place where we feel rich. Every time you reach a new level, the line moves again. But the word biblically, what is it? What are we actually talking about? Right? The rich young man. We did a word study in the Greek and all these fancy things that theologians do. And all the word rich means is abounding in material resources. Abounding in material resources. And to say it simply is actually to say it like this. That if you have more than you need, then you are rich. If you have more than you need for today, then you are rich. And we don't always like to think of ourselves that way, do we? But if you have more than you need, then you're rich. And we've actually learned a lot from Pastor Craig Rochelle at Life Church in Oklahoma on this series called Chasing Carrots. And I love what he said. He said, you can tell you're rich by the things that upset you. Sitting on your couch, you log on to Netflix, and the loading is taking a little bit too long. You're rich. You have more than you need. You get on your computer and you order some toilet paper from Amazon Prime and you expect it to be there the next day, and it doesn't come the next day, and you're all upset. You're probably rich if those types of things upset you. When you go to a restaurant and they don't have your favorite condiment, and that upsets you, right? It's these kind of trivial problems that we have that aren't really problems to the rest of the world. He says, you can tell by the things that upset you if you're rich. And so we like to not think about the rich standard like we normally think about it, but to go, man, if we have more than we need, we're probably rich. And if there's trivial things that really aren't that important that actually bother us, then we're probably rich. And so I hate to burst your bubble today, but biblically speaking, most of us in this room are rich. I wonder in this parable if you notice how the rich man got rich, though. Did you notice it as we read it? How did he get rich? There was an abundant harvest. It says there was a rich man and he had an abundant harvest. What's interesting to me about that is that the ground is actually God's ground, and God is the only one who makes things grow, so God gave the increase, right? This is an important point. If you don't realize this in your own life, that God is the one who gives the increase in your life, whatever you have, if you don't realize that, you're not going to be able to figure the rest of this thing out. You've got to realize this rich man, the reason that he's rich is because God gave the increase. God blessed him with an abundant harvest. And I think so often that in our own lives, we like to take the credit for what we've got or what we've acquired. It was only because God blessed him that he had more than he needed. And the only reason you have more than you need is because God has blessed you. Because God has given it. It was actually this rich man's thinking that was the problem. He thought he's going to store it all up for himself. He's going to store it all up for himself. So everything that God gave him, he thinks he's supposed to keep for himself, which is actually the error. All the things that God gives us, all the things that God blessed us with, it's not only for ourselves. There's a time for us to enjoy it, absolutely. But they're not only for ourselves. The minute that we start thinking that what God has given us is only for us is the moment that we find ourselves in the same problem as the rich young fool. And it's the moment that you start to hear the two words that you never want to hear from God. You fool. You've been blessed to be a blessing to other people, not to store it up and stack it up for yourself and keep it only for yourself. There is a time to enjoy, absolutely. But there is a thinking, there is a mindset that needs to shift in your mind to go, you know what? How can I start to be a blessing to other people? And there is a completely different way to live than chasing after money and stuff and the abundance of things. It is what verse 21 says, that we would be rich towards God. God was not mad because this guy was rich, let's just be clear. God was not mad because this guy was rich. God had made him rich. God was mad because he wasn't rich towards God. You and I, we never need to feel guilty for having more than we need. But we do need to feel a responsibility. We need to feel a responsibility that it's meant to be shared, to be given, to move the kingdom forward. We've said it before, but there really is no problem with having nice things. The problem is when nice things have you. There's no problem with having nice things. The problem is when they have you, when they've so gripped your heart and pulled your heart in such a way that they're dragging you around and they become your pursuit. Nothing wrong with having nice things. In fact, God is the one who gives those. God blesses. But it's when they start to drag us around and we have this endless pursuit of what's temporary that it becomes a problem. One of my favorite verses is actually found in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. It says, so we fix our eyes, not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. What we don't need in our lives is more temporary. What we need in our lives is more eternal. And I would go so far as to say that part of the reason that God has blessed you is because he's setting you up for an eternity, a good eternity. Right? The Bible describes a time whenever we use what we have, our talents, our gifts, our abilities, the things that God has given us. Here and now, we make an investment here and now actually for eternity. And it gives us an opportunity to build a mansion in heaven, not a mansion here. And that's why we've been given stuff. God's giving us an opportunity to invest eternally in our future. As I was thinking about this concept, I was thinking to myself, you know what? What if I just decided that I'm not going to live for this life, that I'm actually going to live for the next one? Right? And sometimes we think about it, we're believers, we've been Christians for a while, and we're like, yeah, of course, that's what we're going to do. But what if you consciously made a decision today? You know what? I'm not going to live for this life, I'm actually going to live for the next one. I'm actually going to use all the things that God has blessed me with, and I'm going to bless and give away and invest in the kingdom here and now. I'm going to actually live for the next life, not for this one. There's a famous missionary who went down to Ecuador in the 50s. And there's a tribe of people who have never heard of the gospel before, and he ended up laying his life down on the line and being martyred for his faith. And the tribe since then has come to Jesus, and the tribe has been saved. And anthropologists have studied the tribe, and they've said it was actually the message of Jesus that saved the tribe from extinction. At that point, there were only about 600 people. And they so believed in just kind of retaliation that they would kill each other if they wronged each other. And it was the gospel of Jesus that came, and now the tribe is kind of 2,000 people plus that has actually saved the tribe. But his name was Jim Elliot, and there's a famous quote that he has. It says that he is no fool who gives what he can't keep to gain what he can never lose. He is no fool, right? You don't want to hear these words rich from God to the rich young guy. You fool. Jim Elliot says, he is no fool who gives what he can't keep to gain what he could never lose. And I'm so honored to stand here today in this community with a group of people who really start to live this. I've seen so many examples of this over the last couple of years of people here who've just been laying their lives down and go, no, we're investing in the kingdom with our time, with our talent, with our resource, with everything that we have. It's just a joy to watch that. But I want to get real practical in the last few minutes that we have together. How can you live rich towards God? Because nobody talks like that. How do you live rich towards God? And when I think about the phrase, I think about this abundance of possessions flowing towards the kingdom of God and flowing towards the things of God. That's how you're rich towards God. And it was actually in 1 Timothy that Paul wrote these words to a young pastor, instructing him how to lead a congregation. And he wrote these words, 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 17. Command those who are rich. By the way, that's you, that's me. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. His command to Timothy, the young pastor, is that Timothy would command his congregation to honor God in this way, that they would do good, they would be rich in good deeds, that they would be generous and willing to share, and that it's in this that you grab a hold of life that is truly life, that you're actually fulfilled and satisfied. It's in the giving away that you're more like God, and God who gave away his only son. This is how you take hold of life that is truly life. It's not by collecting the abundance of possessions and things that are temporary and won't last and will leave you chasing after the next thing. It's actually in the willingness to share that which you've been given. This week I was thinking, you know what? I want to be rich towards God. That's actually, as I was studying this week, that's what I thought to myself. I want to be rich towards God. I need some help with that. But this is actually what I want for my life. So the question is, are you rich towards God? Are you rich towards God? Start thinking through your own life. Are you rich towards God? In your good deeds, in your willingness to share, in your generosity. Pastor Aaron and I were talking this week. He said, I had a friend who many years ago, he's decided that his primary aim in life was going to be a blessing to others. I thought, wow, what if some of us took that on? That my primary aim is to be a blessing to others. I heard Dr. John Maxwell talk about a similar type of concept. He says that he exists to actually add value to other people. That's like one of the reasons that he exists, to add value to others. And I thought, man, if we took this on, the way that we spend our time and our resource, that each of us would go, you know what? I just want to be a blessing to others. I just want to add value to others. I imagine that the world would change. What would happen if we all started to do this? What if we all just started to have yes as our default? When things come up, it says, hey, love the land, do this thing. What if your default was yes? And then you checked your calendar later, rather than checking your calendar first and saying, I don't think it's convenient for me. What if your default was yes? When it was like, hey, we need some people to serve back in kids and help our kids grow up with a biblical foundation and run hard for Jesus into the future. What if your default was just yes, and then check your calendar later? What if your default, when somebody says, hey, would you give? What if your default was to say yes and just check about it later? It was 2 nights ago that Phoenix and I were in the car and we're going through the line at Chick-fil-A. We go to Chick-fil-A far too often, by the way. And she's 5.5. And we're getting ready to get into the drive-thru line. We hadn't even gotten in yet. She said, Dad, what if we pay for the order behind us? I said, why, baby? She's like, I don't know, I just think it would be a good thing to do. So a 5-year-old who's figuring out how to be generous and willing to share with my money, but she understands the concept. This is what it looks like to be rich towards God. It's not some big, huge thing all the time. It's the everyday living out of being generous and willing to share and say, okay, it's not mine anyways. What I got, here you go. If you want it, you can have it. Somebody the other day, and this is not to toot my own horn, somebody the other day, a good friend of mine, he looked at me, he goes, man, I really like your shoes. I'm like, yeah, me too. I love shoes. And I said, you want them? He goes, no, I couldn't. I said, no, for real, you want them? He goes, hey. I said, here you go. Take my shoes. I brought 2 pairs on this trip. You can have them. This is not to toot my own horn. This is going, hey, how do I live rich towards God? These are just really easy, practical ideas. When I first got saved, I didn't live with them, but I spent a lot of time with these guys who I call the disciples. They kind of had this house church thing going on, and they came in and they had this bookshelf full of just like theology books and scripture books, all these different things. And I came in and go, man, this is a really cool book. He goes, you want it? You can have it. It's not mine. I go, what do you mean it's not yours? He goes, no, it's not mine. God's given me everything. It's not even mine. If you want it, you can have it. And I just thought, I never experienced people like this before. This is new. This is fresh. This is This is maybe actually what it looks like to walk in the kingdom. Live in the kingdom, that your default is to say yes because it's not really yours anyways. And if you actually really trust in the God who richly provides, then you know that he'll take care of you. So our default would be to say, yep. Yeah, I know there's a mission trip over the summer, but we got a vacation planned. What if your vacation was the mission trip? Default's to say yes. Pastor Andy Stanley taught a lot on this topic many years ago, and he coined this mantra. And we're going to put it up on the screen, but I want us to do something we don't normally do. I want us to read it out loud together. I want you to just kind of repeat these words with me. We're going to start here at the top, and I actually want you to say it with confidence, and this is going to take some trust because you don't really know what it says. I want you to say, I want you to believe it, I want you to take it on to your life, and here it is. You ready? 1, 2, 3. My God has blessed me with more than I need. I won't trust in stuff, but in the one who richly provides. Because I have more, I will give more and do more. I love that. But that's true. That's true. That's what it looks like to be rich towards God. And I'm curious what our world might look like if each of us took this on and we started to live this out. It doesn't take too much curiosity for me. I imagine that blind eyes would be opened. I imagine that chains would be broken. I imagine that you and I would walk around every day sharing our testimony of what God has done and seeing salvation come. Not just the pastor that could lead somebody, that you in your workplace tomorrow, this week, that you might actually share your testimony and go, man, this is how much God loves me and he loves you too. And you might see salvation start to come. See, as we start to live rich towards God, I imagine that the kingdom would come. The realities of the kingdom would be dropped here and now. And that's what I want to see. Do you believe these kind of things? Do you want to see these type of things in our community, in our life, in our church, in our workplaces? There's a woman in our church who's been telling me repeatedly, man, I'm just praying for revival. I'm praying for a revival. And I got to tell you, I love that prayer. I love that expectation. But my prayer is actually different from that. I've prayed that I would never have to pray for revival again. I prayed that I would never have to pray for revival again because the people of God would fall so much in love with Jesus, that they would be so overflowing and so on fire for him that they never have to be rekindled and revived again. That's my prayer. That's my prayer for us. That's my prayer for the world, that we would never have to pray for revival again because we would just stay hot. That we would live rich towards God. That we would walk in authority. That we would walk in the power of the Spirit. That we would walk as secure sons and daughters of the Most High God who know that he will take care of everything. Some great confidence comes with that. That we would walk out our faith. That we would live rich towards God. I think God could do some amazing things among us as we step out and live like that. So I've decided this week that I'm going to live rich towards God. That's been my conclusion as I've studied, as I've come. I'm going to live rich towards God. Anybody else with me? Is there anybody else who's with me? Come on. I want to pray for you. Those of you guys who just put your hand up, I just want to pray for you. God, I pray for your people, that we would take on the command that you've given us to live rich towards you, that we wouldn't just stack up and store up for ourselves, but we would go, no, everything that we have comes from you. We want to give our time, our talent, our resource. We want to bless others. God, you've blessed us so much. So I pray that you would give your people the strength and the confidence this week to walk in their richness, that they would feel the weight of the responsibility, that they wouldn't feel guilt or shame for that, they would carry the responsibility of the things that you've asked them to do. God, our desire is that the world would look different than it does today, that people would be drawn to you. Pray that your people would represent you well. So this morning, in the same spirit of prayer, if you're here today and you've never made the decision to follow Jesus, I want to remind you of just a couple things. Money and stuff will never fill the void inside your heart. The satisfaction and the fulfillment you're looking for isn't found in stuff. It's not found in the next girlfriend or the next boyfriend. It's not found in the next level of income. That void in your heart, that thing, that fulfillment that you're so longing for only comes with a relationship with Jesus. That's why God sent Jesus. The Bible says in John chapter 3, verse 16, that God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever believes in him will never perish, but have everlasting life. The promise is that if we believe in him, if we confess with our mouth and we believe in our heart that Jesus is Lord, that we want to follow him, that he is faithful and just to forgive us of our sins and all of our wrongdoing. And he's here to save us and give us eternal life, something that our money and our stuff can never do. So if you're here today with all heads bowed and every eye closed, and you've never made the decision to follow Jesus, I want to give you that chance to make the best decision of your entire life. Nobody's looking around except for me. If you're here today and you feel the Spirit of the living God tugging on your heart, I want you to respond on the count of 3. Just simply raise your hand. Nobody's looking around. I want to pray for you. 1, God loves you. 2, he has a great plan for your life. 3, if that's you, just simply raise your hand. Yep. Yep. If you raise your hand, just begin to talk to God in your own words. There's no magical words. God, I want to follow you. I thank you for forgiving me of my sins. I admit that I'm a sinner. I believe in your son, Jesus. And I confess right now that I want to follow you. I don't know how to do it. I don't know all the things that I'm supposed to do or things that I'm supposed to say, but I want to start. I want to start today. So Lord, I thank you for the hands that were raised, the hearts that are making a decision to follow you, God. I pray that you would bring godly people around them. I pray that you would give them the boldness and courage to tell a friend. Say, hey, today I made a great decision. Today I made a decision to follow Jesus. Would you help me? So Father, we thank you that there is a party in heaven right now, rejoicing over lives that have been changed. We love you, Lord. We thank you for today. We thank you for this church. We pray all these things in your name. And everybody said, amen, amen. We are so glad that you joined us today. If you did raise your hand to make a decision to follow Jesus, don't be a stranger. Like, that decision's too big for you to go at it alone. We'd love to get to know you. We've got some Bibles down here in the front. We'd love to help you get started on that journey. All right, we'll see you next week for Chasing Carrots.